Hi guys, my name's Casey and I'm back with another video. So in the last video, me and Austin mentioned how we're Karsh STEM scholars, and I thought it'd be really cool to talk to the man himself, our director, Mr. Smith.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I just have a couple questions about you, and then I have a couple questions about Karsh.
Okay.
Okay. So first, what do you love? But more importantly, what are your passions?
One of my great passions and one of my great interests is helping young people to become empowered and to find value in education by way of finding value in themselves. So I've dedicated much of my life to either coaching kids or student development. And there isn't much distance between the two because coaching is developing kids and student development work is coaching kids. So, my passion then I would summarize by saying is working with young people.
Leading further into this, I want to ask, what do you fight for?
I'm not sure if it's fair to say that this is what I fight for, but this is what I desire greatly. And the interesting thing is, fighting for it has its own challenges, and I'll tell you why. And one of the reasons why I talked to you just a minute ago about maybe doing a YouTube channel or a podcast or something is because in listening to these YouTube videos and listening to these young people talk about the challenges that they had before they got to university, and then how difficult it was for them to develop a sense of belonging when they didn't feel welcomed. Some of the first people that they interact with are student services professionals, even before they get to interact with their faculty. And so if you aren't good at providing student services, if the manner in which you do it isn't intentional, in other words, if you don't go out of your way to be helpful, to serve well, to make students feel comfortable, to make them feel welcomed, you're part of their first problem. And some students walk away for those very reasons because they already have a great deal of self-doubt about, do I belong here? Did I make the right decision? Am I going to be successful here? Are people going to like me? Those are questions we all ask, whether we want to admit it or not. We all ask that question. We all want to be welcomed. We all want to be supported. We all want to be in places where we believe people welcome us. It's difficult sometimes to confront your colleagues about these kinds of things for a variety of different reasons, not the least of which is, who do you think you are to lecture me on how to engage students? Now, that doesn't mean that I don't push my colleagues to get results on the behalf of students, but you asked, what do you fight for? And so I'm not fighting because it will be a fight and nobody wins. But I thought if I had like a YouTube channel and could get a good following of the very people for whom the message is intended, that might be a way to pursue it rather than fight for it. Because they might send comments and messages to me about disapproval or whatever, but I'm going to reach somebody. And I'm going to be able to do it without a fight. So while I don't fight for it, what I would love to be able to fight for is creating welcoming, supportive, inclusive environments for all students. Because we have a few minority students in the Karsh STEM Scholars Program. They're not minorities in the sense that they are students of color, but they're minority in the sense that they're at a predominantly Black institution and they are not Black. We have students who are LGBTQ. So there are lots of different types of diversity, even at a historically Black college or university. And we have the same obligation to make those students feel welcome as we do for any student at any university under any circumstances. So, I would love to be able to have that influence without the fight. Now, that's not to say I'm not a fighter, okay, as you probably know.
My last question in this kind of part is, if your childhood self saw you right now, would they be proud of who you become?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure of that. Um, because the interesting thing, even though neither of my parents went to college, um, education and learning was highly valued in my home, and it was my aspiration from a very young age to go to college. I was a college student myself when I decided that, boy, I would love to work at a college or a university. And that was because of a great experience that I had that was transformative. Usually, when we talk about college, a lot of times we're thinking about what happens in the classroom. I think the most influential things collectively happen outside the classroom. I think what prepares you for the world of work happens in the classroom. I think what prepares you for the world happens both in outside the classroom, but more of it is outside the classroom.
Okay.
And so, when I went to UMBC and I had a problem, and I was urged by some of my peers to go and see the financial aid director and ask him if he could provide funding for me to move on campus so that I could escape the problem that I was having, traveling, great distance from the university to home. I was reluctant, but they said, well, you can either keep dealing with your issue or you can try to avoid it by going to see him. I did. To make a long story short, he said to me, no student should have to deal with what you're dealing with. I can't do it today, but give me a few days. I'll get you the money you need to move on campus. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, you can do that? Somebody can do that? You can just impact someone's life in a very powerful way with just compassion and decision making, and then make things happen. I didn't want to do anything else but work at a university. And I had no idea how I could make that happen. But the universe decided that this is where I needed to be. This would be the place where I would live out my purpose. Because I think, based on my purpose, there are lots of venues where I could, successfully execute it. But for whatever reason, the universe decided that it should be in this setting. And so the young me would be just overjoyed that this is where I ended up and that this is the kind of work that I'm doing. It didn't have to be the Karsh Scholars Program, but it needed to be in this environment with these kinds of young people and being intentional about the chance and the opportunity to impact their lives. So, yeah, I think the young me would be shocked a little bit because it all worked out this way, but pleased.
And you have the opportunity to touch like 30 students' lives, 30 new students' lives each year.
Well, you know what? That's right. But really, what I have the impact to do is to touch the lives of anyone with whom I come in contact. And so it really is an opportunity for many more than 30, but you're absolutely right. I get an opportunity to have a tremendous impact on the lives of those 30. But one of the things that I've learned over the years is that the greatest opportunity for success is born out of the possibility that it becomes mutual. Because I think people who don't get anything out of their labor, the time they invest, they're not likely to stick with it. And so I get as much out of it, maybe in some cases more, than the students have any idea. And so I think that's part of what sustains the work that I do. And it also identifies, how valuable it is.
Okay.